Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Japan Foundation Manila's second advocacy seminar. The title of our seminar is Building a Future of Working Together,共に働く未来を創る日本語教育. I am Francesca Ventura, your MC and moderator for this event. Okay, so today's 1 hour, 40-minute program will include opening remarks, 2 expert lectures, a presentation that centers on the Philippine perspective, and the Q&A session followed by the closing remarks. So we will now begin with our opening remarks from Mr. Ben Suzuki, the director of the Japan Foundation Manila. Suzuki Shocho, yoroshiku onegai itashimasu.
はい、おはようございます、皆さん。We have already now more than 100 participants for this seminar. Thank you for your joining on the very beginning of your day of working weeks. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Japan Foundation Manila's second advocacy seminar on Japanese language education. We launched this initiative last year in the hope of starting a dialogue on how to improve Japanese language education that would involve not only the teachers and language institutions we often interact with, but other sectors of society, such as industry, government, and academia as well. Last year's event featured a lecture by Professor Yasuhiko Tosaku entitled Leading the Way of the Future of Japanese Language Education. This lecture brought paradigm shift taking place in the world of language institutions on our attention, examples of which include a shift from education which a focus on passing exams and accumulation of linguistic knowledge to standard-based education focusing on the fulfillment of specific goals or can-do statements. And the lecture also suggested a shift from knowledge testing that focused on one's ability to simply recall information to performance testing that involves the assessment of a learner's ability to use language effectively in real-life situations. Building on insights from last year's lecture, we take the next step this morning by once again gathering a diverse group of stakeholders involved in Japanese language education this time to take a look at the state of workplaces where Japanese is used as a means of communication, as well as to listen to an actual case where a company made a decision to shift their focus from reviewing to get high scores in proficiency tests, such as the JLPT, to engaging in standard-based education that helps employees pick up practical linguistic skills they can immediately apply at work, thus helping them achieve success, enhance their career pathways, and support their professional integration. With the theme, Building a Future of Working Together, I hope that this lecture inspire you and give you the insight needed to collaborate and innovative with others in the spirit of providing Japanese language education that meets the needs of modern workplace as well as specific learners. Thank you once again for joining us this morning. May today's seminar be an eye-opening and fruitful event for all. ありがとうございました。
Suzuki Shocho, arigatou gozaimashita. Now, let us hear from Professor Noriko Shimada of Musashino University, a leading expert in Japanese language education for global communication. This morning, Professor Shimada will present on rethinking Japanese language education for work in Japanese. I will provide the interpretation. Shimada Sensei, yoroshiku onegai itashimasu.
皆さんおはようございます。それでは本日は就労分野の日本語教育のあり方について私の方からお話しさせていただきたいと思います。
Hi, good morning, everyone. Today I would like to talk about Japanese language education for work.
本日の流れは以下の通りです。まずはじめに就労分野の日本語教育をめぐる動向についてお話しします。その上で次に日本政府が日本語教育政策の土台とする日本語教育の参照枠とは何か、またその言語教育観についてお話しします。そして1、2でお話ししたことを踏まえ、 就労現場で期待される日本語能力とは何かについて検討したいと思います。最後に、就労分野における日本語教育の今後の課題についてまとめます。
The flow of today's agenda is as follows. First, I will talk about trends surrounding Japanese language education for work. Next, I will talk about what the framework of reference for Japanese language education, which is the basis of the Japanese government's Japanese language education policy is, and its view of language education. Based on what I've said in number 1 and number 2, I would like to consider what kind of Japanese language ability is expected in the workplace. In closing, I will summarize the future challenges of Japanese language education for work.
就労分野の日本語教育をめぐる動向についてです。
So this is about the trends surrounding Japanese language education for work.
こちらのグラフの通り、日本国内の外国人労働者数は年々増加しています。コロナ禍においても増加率は低かったものの、減少することはありませんでした。2024年10月時点の外国人労働者数は約230万3000人で過去最多となりました。在留資格別に見ると、専門的・技術的分野の在留資格の外国人労働者が増えています。その理由は2019年4月より受け入れが始まった特定技能の増加によるものと思われます。
As shown in this graph, the number of foreign workers in Japan has been increasing year on year. Even during the COVID-19 pandemic, the rate of increase was low, but it did not decrease. As of October 2024, the number of foreign workers was approximately 2,303,000, the highest number ever recorded. Looking at the status of residents, the number of foreign workers with professional and technical status of residence is increasing. This is thought to be due to the increase in specified skilled workers who began to be accepted in April 2019.
こちらの円グラフは国籍別外国人労働者の割合を示したものです。フィリピン出身の労働者数は全体の約 11% を占める24万5565人で、ベトナム、中国に次いで第3位となっています。
So this pie chart shows the percentage of foreign workers by nationality. The number of workers from the Philippines is around 245,565, accounting for about 11% of the total number, making it the third largest source of foreign workers in Japan after Vietnam and China.
このような外国人労働者数の増加の背景には、日本政府の外国人受け入れ政策の転換があります。高度人材中心の受け入れから少子高齢化により産業の存続が難しくなっている業種への非熟練市場への受け入れと大きく方針を転換しました。
The reason behind this increase in the number of foreign workers is the shift in the Japanese government's policies on accepting foreign workers. They have significantly changed their approach from primarily accepting highly skilled individuals to now accepting unskilled workers in industries where they are now finding it difficult to survive due to the declining birth rate and aging population.
まず、この表の左側をご覧ください。まず、改正出入国管理法の可決成立により、2018年に特定技能制度が創設され、2019年から受け入れを開始しました。また、昨年2024年には技能実習制度に代わって育成就労制度が創設され、2027年から受け入れが開始されます。
So I'd like to ask you to take a look at the left side of this table. Here you can see that the specified skill worker system was established in 2018 with the passage and the enactment of the revised Immigration Control Act. And the acceptance of these specified skill workers began in 2019. Furthermore, last year in 2024, the training and employment system was established to replace the technical intern training program. This program's implementation is scheduled to begin in 2027.
これらの制度の創設や改正により、日本語教育に関わる法律や施策も整えられてきました。 2019年の6月には日本語教育推進法が成立しました。表の右側をご覧ください。その後、2021年には日本語教育の参照枠が取りまとめられ、その翌年、2022年には日本語教育の参照枠の活用のための手引きが作成されました。2020年に厚生労働省が作成された就労場面で必要な日本語能力の目標設定ツールも日本語教育の参照枠の取りまとめと並行して行われました。
With the creation and revision of these systems, laws and measures related to Japanese language education have also been developed. So may we ask you to look at the right side of the table for more information. So here we can see that the Japanese Language Education Promotion Act was enacted in June of 2019. After that, the Framework of Reference for Japanese Language Education was compiled in 2021. And the year after that, the guidelines for using the Framework of Reference for Japanese Language Education was created in 2022. The Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare has also created the tools for setting goals for Japanese language proficiency required in the workplace in 2020. This was about the same time as the Framework of Reference for Japanese Language Education was being compiled.
さらに2023年5月には日本語教育機関認定法が成立し、2024年4月から認定日本語教育機関及び登録日本語教員の制度がスタートしました。基準を満たした日本語教育機関を認定し、登録日本語教員という日本語教師の国家資格を設定することで、日本語教育機関と日本語教育人材の質向上を目指しています。
So in addition to this, the Japanese Language Education Institution Accreditation Act was enacted in May 2023, and the system of accredited Japanese language education institutions and registered Japanese language teachers was launched in April 2024. By accrediting Japanese language institutions that meet the standards and being able to establish a national qualification for Japanese language teachers, officially called registered Japanese language teachers, the Japanese government aims to improve the quality of existing Japanese language education institutions and Japanese language education provided by personnel or teachers.
2027年から技能実習制度が廃止され、新しく創設された育成就労制度による外国人材の受け入れが始まります。現在、技能実習生と特定技能外国人に対する日本語教育の現状の課題を踏まえ、育成就労制度と特定技能制度の円滑な施行と運営のために、外国人材を受け入れる企業や機関に対して日本語学習の機会を提供することを義務付けるという方向性で議論がなされています。
So the technical intern training program will be abolished in 2027, and the acceptance of foreign human resources under the newly established training and employment program is scheduled to begin. Currently, in light of the current issues with Japanese language education for technical intern trainees and specified skilled foreign nationals, discussions are being held in the direction of requiring companies and institutions that accept foreign workers to provide opportunities for Japanese language training in order for them to smoothly implement and operate the new training and employment program and the specified skilled workers program.
現在の技能実習生と特定技能外国人に対する日本語教育については、このスライドの表に示した通り、明確な基準や評価制度はありません。技能実習生は介護分野以外の職種において日本語能力の要件はなく、日本語学習支援は任意となっています。また、特定技能についても入国時の日本語能力について、国際交流基金日本語基礎テスト JLPT ベーシックまたは日本語能力試験 JLPT N4 以上の合格の要件のみに設定されています。
So as shown in the table on this slide, there are currently no clear standards or evaluation systems for Japanese language education for technical intern trainees and specified skilled foreign workers. For technical intern trainees, there are no Japanese language proficiency requirements for occupations other than the nursing field, and Japanese language learning support is optional. Additionally, for specific skills, the only Japanese language proficiency requirement at the time of entry is to pass the Japan Foundation Test for Fundamental Japanese, or JFT Basic, or the Japanese Language Proficiency Test, JLP N4 or above. So these are the trends surrounding Japanese language education for work.
それでは、ここからは日本政府が日本語教育政策の土台とする日本語教育の参照枠とは何か、またその言語教育観についてお話ししていきたいと思います。このような流れで進めたいと思います。
So now I would like to talk about the framework of reference for Japanese language education. This is the basis of the Japanese government's Japanese language educational policy and contains its view on language education.
まず、日本語教育の参照枠とは何かです。日本語教育の参照枠は、言語・文化の相互理解・相互尊重を前提として、学習段階に応じた教育内容などを示し、個々の日本語学習者に応じた日本語教育を継続的に受けられるようにするための日本語教育に関わるすべての人が参照できる日本語学習、教授、評価のための枠組みです。
So first, we were presented with the question of what is the framework of reference for Japanese language education? So as shown on the slide, the framework of reference for Japanese language education is a framework for Japanese language learning, teaching, and assessment that can be used by everyone involved in Japanese language education. Based on mutual understanding and respect between languages and cultures, it outlines educational content according to different learning stages. The framework aims to ensure that individual Japanese language learners can continuously receive education suited to their needs.
日本語教育の参照枠の活用のための手引きでは、日本語教育の参照枠の目的について、このスライドの通り書かれています。日本語学習者が国や地域、日本語教育機関を移動しても、学習を円滑に継続し、自律的に学習を進めていける環境を整備するために取りまとめられました。
The guidelines for utilizing the framework of reference for Japanese language education describes the purpose or the aim of the framework of reference for Japanese language education as shown on this slide. It was compiled to create an environment in which Japanese language learners can smoothly continue their studies and progress autonomously, even if they move between countries, regions, or Japanese language education institutions.
日本語教育の参照枠では、言語教育観として次の3つの柱を挙げています。日本語学習者を社会的存在として捉えること、言語を使ってできることに注目すること、多様な日本語使用を尊重することの3つです。一つずつ詳しく見ていきましょ
う。So the framework of reference for Japanese language education lists the following 3 pillars as its view of language education. The 3 main points are: number 1, viewing Japanese language learners as social agents. Number 2, focusing on what learners can do with the language. Number 3, respecting diverse uses of the Japanese language. So let's take a closer look at each one.
まず一つ目の日本語学習者を社会的存在として捉えるとはどういうことでしょうか。学習者は単に言語を学ぶものではなく、新たに学んだ言語を用いて社会に参加し、より良い人生を歩もうとする社会的存在であること、また、言語の習得はそれ自体が目的ではなく、より深く社会に参加し、より多くの場面で自分らしさを発揮できるようになるためのあくまでも手段であるということです。
So first, what does the first point, viewing Japanese language learners as social agents mean? So it means that learners, as we refer to them, are not simply language learners or people learning a language, but rather they are social agents who use their newly learned language in order to participate in society and pursue a better life. It also means that language acquisition is not an end in itself, but rather a means to engage more deeply in society and to be able to express one's true self in a wider range of situations.
ここで日本語教育に関わる立場として大切なことは、日本語学習者は社会に参加、より良い人生を歩もうとするといった主体的な存在であることと、言語学習は手段であって、それ自体が目的でないことを念頭に、教室と社会を隔てることがないように意識することです。
So here it is important from the standpoint of Japanese language education to remember that Japanese language learners are subjective beings who participate in society and try to live a better life, and that language learning is just a means and not an end in itself. So we have to be conscious of not separating the classroom from society.
次に2つ目の言語を使ってできることに注目するです。これは社会の中で日本語学習者が自身の言語能力をより活かしていくために言語知識を持っていることよりも、その知識を使って何ができるかに注目するということです。
So next, the second point is focusing on what learners can do with language. This means that in order for Japanese language learners to make the most of their language abilities in society, we should focus not on how much linguistic knowledge they have, but rather on what they can do with the knowledge they possess.
ここで日本語教育に関わる立場として大切なことは、日本語学習者の日本語能力も個人の特性や性格によって異なりますし、日本語学習者が出会う対話の相手の歩み寄りや手助け、また ICT などのツールを活用することでできる言語行動は固定的なものではなく、常に変化するものであるということを意識することです。
What's important here for those involved in Japanese language education is to be aware that the proficiency of Japanese language learners varies depending on their individual characteristics and personality, and the linguistic behaviors that these learners are able to accomplish is not fixed, but it's constantly changing, depending on the support and the assistance of the people around them, as well as the use of tools such as information technology such as the internet and AI.
最後の3つ目は、多様な日本語使用を尊重するです。各人にとって必要な言語活動は何か、その活動をどの程度遂行できることが必要かなど、目標設定を個別に行うことを重視すること、そして母語話者が使用する日本語の在り方を必ずしも学ぶべき規範、最終的なゴールとはしないということです。
The third and final point is to respect the diversity of Japanese language usage. So emphasis is placed on setting individualized goals based on what language activities are necessary for each person and to what extent they need to perform these activities. It also means that the way native speakers use Japanese is not necessarily considered a strict norm or our ultimate goal for learning.
ここで日本語教育に関わる立場として大切なことは、日本語学習者の目標設定を個別に行うために必要な専門性を身につけること、また、日々の教育活動の中で遭遇する日本語学習者の多様な日本語使用に対する感受性を高めるとともに、教室と社会との接続を意識した目標設定を行うことです。以上、日本語教育の参照枠の言語教育観の3つの柱でした。
From the perspective of those involved in Japanese language education, it is important to develop the expertise necessary to individually set goals for Japanese language learners, then to increase sensitivity to the diverse ways Japanese language learners use the language in their daily educational activities, and last, to set goals that are conscious of the connection between classroom and society. This ends today's discussion on the 3 pillars of language education as they are seen in the Framework of Reference for Japanese language education.
こちらのスライドは日本語教育の参照枠の特徴を3つにまとめたものです。1つ目の特徴は、ヨーロッパ言語共通参照枠 CEFR を参考にしたことです。2つ目の特徴は、CEFR のレベル尺度や指標をほぼそのまま使用していることです。日本語教育の参照枠では、全体的な尺度と言語活動別の熟達度と言語能力記述文、日本語教育の参照枠 CAN-DO の3種類の指標を提供しています。言語活動別の熟達度は、CEFR では自己評価表と呼ばれているものです。これらの3つの指標はいずれも言語能力記述文 CAN-DO で記述されていますが、その内容は抽象的な記述から具体的な記述へと書き分けられています。
This slide summarizes the three characteristics of the framework of reference for Japanese language education. The first characteristic is that it is based on the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, also known as CEFR. The second characteristic is that it uses a CEFR level scale and indicators almost as is, or as they are shown in the CEFR framework. The Framework of Reference for Japanese language education provides three types of indicators: the overall scale, proficiency levels by language activity, which is equivalent to the CEFR self-assessment grid, and descriptors of language competence, also referred to as Framework of Reference for Japanese language education CAN-DOs.
3つ目の特徴は、CEFR には含まれていないものですが、日本語独自の特徴である文字や漢字の学習方針について示していることです。
So, all three of these indicators are written in Japanese, in language proficiency statements, or what we call can-do statements, but the content is divided into abstract and concrete descriptions. The third feature, which is not included in CEFR, is that it provides guidelines on learning Japanese characters, including kanji, considering the unique characteristics of the Japanese writing system.
こちらのスライドは CEFR のレベル尺度です。CEFR では基礎段階の言語使用者のレベルを A とし、自立した言語使用者のレベルを B、熟達した言語使用者のレベルを C とする3段階とし、それぞれを2分割して A1、A2、B1、B2、C1、C2 の全部で6レベルとなっています。
Right. This slide shows the CEFR level scale. The CFR or CEFR has three levels: A for basic language users, B for independent language users, and C for proficient language users. Each level is divided into two. So we have A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2 for a total of 6 levels.
基礎段階の言語使用者の A1、A2 は、ごく基本的なコミュニケーションができる段階です。自立した言語使用者の B1、B2 は、自律的に社会生活を送ることができる段階です。ヨーロッパの多くの国では、移民に対して B1 レベルまでの学習機会を保障しています。日本でも B1 を地域社会で自立して生活できるレベルと位置づけています。熟達した言語使用者の C1、C2 は外国語教育としてではなく、大学等で専門的な内容を学びながら身につけていくレベルと言われています。
So the basic user levels A1 and E2 are stages where very basic communication is possible. The independent user levels B1 and B2 are stages where independent social life is possible. In many European countries, learning opportunities up to the B1 level are guaranteed for immigrants. In Japan, B1 is positioned as the level at which one can live independently in the local community. The proficient user levels C1 and C2 are said to be levels that are acquired while learning specialized content at universities, etc., rather than as foreign language education.
2つ目の特徴である日本語教育の参照枠で、ほぼそのまま使用されている CEFR のレベル尺度や指標とは何か見ていきましょう。その前に、具体的に日本語教育の参照枠で示されている日本語能力の熟達度と 言語能力記述文の範囲について確認しておきます。
Let's look at the second characteristic of the Framework of Reference for Japanese Language Education, where level scales and indicators are used almost exactly as they are in CEFR. But before we delve into that, let's observe the specific Japanese language proficiency levels and range of Japanese language proficiency descriptions as shown in the Framework of Reference for Japanese Language Education.
日本語教育の参照枠では、全体的な尺度と言語活動別の熟達度と言語能力記述文日本語教育の参照枠 CAN-DO の3種類の指標を示しています。このスライドの赤枠の部分が日本語教育の参照枠で示されている日本語能力の熟達度と言語能力記述文の範囲です。これらはいずれも言語能力記述文 CAN-DO で記述されています。
The Framework of Reference for Japanese Language Education provides 3 types of indicators. We have the overall scale, proficiency by language activity, and descriptors of language competence, also known as Framework of Reference for Japanese Language Education CAN-DOs. The areas in the red frames on this slide are the proficiency levels, and the range of language proficiency statements are shown in the Framework of Reference for Japanese Language Education. All of these are described in using statements or descriptors of Japanese language proficiency that we often refer to as can-do statements.
日本語教育の参照枠の使用者は、全体的な尺度、言語活動別の熟達度、言語能力記述文の3つの指標に基づいて作成された、このスライドの図の下の部分で示されている生活、留学、就労等の分野別の言語能力記述文を参照することや、さまざまな現場に合わせて個別の団体、教育機関が自由に現場 CAN-DO を選択作成することが期待されています。
Users of the Framework of Reference for Japanese Language Education are expected to refer to the language proficiency statements or can-do for each field, such as for daily life, study abroad, and work, which are shown on the lower part of the figure on this slide. These were created based on the 3 indicators of overall scale, proficiency by language activity, and descriptors of language proficiency, or the can-dos. And individual organizations and educational institutions are expected to freely select and create on-site can-dos or workplace can-dos to suit various situations.
分野別の言語能力記述文 CAN-DO としては、地域に在住する外国人が自立した言語使用者として生活していく上で必要となる日本語能力を785項目の生活分野の言語能力記述文 CAN-DO で示した生活 CAN-DO があります。
So the can-do for daily living is a set of 785 language ability descriptors or can-do statements for different aspects of daily life that outlines the Japanese language skills required for foreigners living in a particular area to live or exist as an independent language user.
ここでCEFRや日本語教育の参照枠を理解するためには欠かせない言語能力記述文とは何か確認しておきましょう。言語能力記述文とは、社会的存在である言語の使用者及び学習者が生活、就労、教育等の場面で遂行していく必要がある課題を言語を学ぶ上での目標として具体的に示したものです。
Right. So now let's talk about what language proficiency descriptors or can-do statements, which are essential to understanding the CEFR and the Framework of Reference for Japanese language education are. Language proficiency descriptors or can-do statements are concrete learning objectives that indicate the tasks that language users and learners as social agents need to accomplish in various contexts such as their daily life, work, and education.
それでは、参照枠の言語熟達度に関する2つの指標について確認しましょう。 全体的な尺度と言語活動別の熟達度の2つです。
So now let's look at two indicators of language proficiency in the frame of reference. So here we have the overall scale and proficiency by language ability.
こちらに示した表が全体的な尺度です。全体的な尺度とは、日本語能力の熟達度をCEFRと同様に A1 から C2 の6つのレベルに分け、各レベルで日本語を使ってどのようなことができるのかについての概要を言語能力記述文で示したものです。
So the table shown here is the overall scale, which divides Japanese language proficiency into 6 levels. So from A1 to C2, just like the CEFR, and it uses language proficiency statements or can-dos to outline what you can do at each level in Japanese.
言語熟達度は A、基礎段階の言語使用者、B、自律的な言語使用者、C、熟達した言語使用者の3つの大きな段階に分かれていること、そして各段階がそれぞれ2つに分かれて A1、A2、B1、B2、C1、C2 の6つのレベルとなることはすでに説明しました。
We have already explained that language proficiency is divided into 3 major levels. A, basic language user, B, autonomous language user, and C, proficient language user. And that each of these stages is divided into 2, resulting in 6 levels, namely A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2.
特定技能の入国時のレベルとして A2、生活者として自立できる地方自治体が目指すレベルとして B1、高等教育機関で学ぶことができる、また高度人材として仕事ができるレベルをとして B2 がその目安とされています。
So A2 is the level required at the time of entry for the specified skilled worker. P1 is the level that local governments target for foreign nationals to be able to live independently as a resident. And B2 is the level recommended for one to study at institutions of higher education and work as highly skilled professionals.
表の左側には JLPT と BJT ビジネス日本語テストのレベルを参考に示しました。
So on the left side of the table, you can see the levels of JLPT and BJT Business Japanese Test, which are shown for your reference.
こちらは全体的尺度の B2 の記述文です。全体的な尺度では赤字で示した通り、理解できる、やり取りができる、テクストを作ることができる、説明できるなど、そのレベルでできる言語活動の相談について、抽象度の高い表現で記述されていることがわかります。
So this is a description for B2 level taken from the overall scale. As shown in red, the overall scale uses highly abstract expressions to describe the overall language activities that one can perform at that level, such as can understand, can interact, can produce text, and can explain.
次に、言語活動の熟達度、CEFR では自己評価表と呼ばれる指標について見ていきましょう。これは全体的な尺度を聞くこと、読むこと、話すこと、やり取り、話すこと、発表、書くことの5つに分けて、それぞれの言語活動とレベルにおいてどのようなことができるのかを示したものです。この指標は日本語教師だけではなく、日本語学習者が自分の日本語能力を把握するための自己評価表としても活用できます。
So next, let's look at the indicator called proficiency in language activities. This is also known as the CEFR self-assessment grid. This divides the overall scale into 5 areas, which are listening, reading, speaking, interaction, speaking, presentation, and writing. It also shows us what can be done in each language activity and level. This indicator can be used not only by Japanese language teachers, but also by Japanese language learners as a self-assessment table for them to understand their own Japanese language ability.
こちらは言語活動別の熟達度の話すことやり取りの B2 レベルの記述文です。言語活動の範囲が 口頭によるやり取りに限定されているため、全体的な尺度の記述と比べると具体的であることがわかります。
So this is a description of the B2 level for speaking interaction. It's a description of the proficiency level centered on one particular language activity. So you can see that the scope of language activities here is limited only to oral interaction, making it more specific than the descriptions seen on the overall scale.
このように、言語能力記述文は学習目標設定と学習成果の評価に利用することが可能ですが、日本語教育の参照枠 CAN-DO をベースとしたカリキュラムデザインの方法として、バックワードデザイン、逆向き設計が推奨されています。
As described above, language proficiency statements can be used to set learning goals and evaluate learning outcomes. But backward design is the recommended method for designing the curriculum based on the set of can-dos suggested in the framework of reference for Japanese language education.
逆向き設計とは、1、学習目標をまず設定し、2、学習目標を達成したことを測る効果的な評価方法を決め、3、その評価方法で良い成果が得られるようにするための授業の内容や方法を考えて、カリキュラム全体を設計するという考え方です。
So the concept of backward design means first setting the learning objectives, then deciding on effective assessment methods to measure the achievement of the learning goals, and then designing the entire curriculum by considering lesson content and teaching methods that will enable or that can enable good outcomes using the chosen assessment method.
日本語教育の参照枠 CAN-DO をベースに逆向き設計を行うということは、社会的に求められるある言語活動から学習目標を設定し、効果的な評価方法を決め、それが達成できるような教育内容を検討するということです。
Backward design based on the framework of reference for Japanese language education can-dos means setting learning goals from certain socially required language activities, deciding on effective assessment methods, and considering educational content that will enable these goals to be achieved.
それでは、これまでお話をしてきた内容を踏まえ、就労現場で期待される日本語能力とは何かについて検討してみたいと思います。2つの問いについて考えてみましょう。1つ目の問いは、なぜ雇用する側は日本語教育の機会を外国人就労者に提供する必要があるのかです。2つ目の問いは、なぜ外国人労働者は日本語学習をする必要があるのかです。
So based on what I have discussed so far, I would like to consider what kind of Japanese language ability is expected in the workplace. Let's consider two questions. The first question being, why do employers need to provide foreign workers with opportunities for language education? The second question is, why do foreign workers need to learn Japanese?
冒頭で就労分野の日本語教育をめぐる動向についてお話ししましたが、技能実習制度に代わって育成就労制度が創設されるという制度見直しの一環として、育成就労制度と特定技能制度が連続的なキャリアパスとなるよう、日本語能力の要件についても議論されています。具体的には、就労前に期待される日本語能力は、A1 相当の日本語能力の試験合格、または A1 相当講習の受講。育成就労3年から特定技能1号への移行は、A2 相当の日本語能力の試験合格。特定技能1号から2号への移行は、B1 相当の日本語能力の試験合格という要件が設定されるイメージが提示されています。
So at the beginning, I mentioned the trends surrounding Japanese language education for work. As part of the system review to replace the technical intern training program with a new training and employment program, there are discussions about the requirements for Japanese language proficiency so that the training and employment program and the specified skilled worker program can now become a continuous path. Specifically, Before starting work, one must pass a test to certify Japanese language proficiency equivalent to A1 or must complete an A1 equivalent course. Then to transition from training employment 3 years to a specified skilled worker status, namely Category 1, the requirement is to pass a test to certify Japanese language proficiency equivalent to the A2 level. Then in order to transition from specified skilled worker Category 1 to Category 2, the requirement is to pass a test to certify Japanese language proficiency equivalent to B1 level.
このようにレベルや学習時間数などの What や How が中心で、何のために日本語を学習する必要があるのかといった Why についての議論が少ない状況です。本日のセミナーのタイトルのように、就労分野の日本語学習のゴールは、共に働く未来を作るためと考えますが、共に働くために必要な日本語教育、日本語学習とは何か考える必要があります。
So the reality is that most of the time, our focus is on the what and how of learning Japanese, paying special attention to levels and the number of hours one has studied Japanese, without paying much attention to the why of studying Japanese or for what purpose learners would like to use the language. As the title of today's seminar suggests, the goal of studying Japanese for work is to create a future in which we can work together. But we need to consider first, what kind of Japanese language education and learning is necessary in order for us to achieve this?
ここで Why について考えてみましょう。外国人労働者を雇用する企業や機関と外国人労働者の2つの異なる立場での Wants と Needs について考えてみましょう。まず、外国人材を雇用する側の Wants と Needs について考えてみましょ
う。So now let's think about why. Let's consider the wants and needs of two different perspectives. Companies or organizations that employ foreign workers and that of the foreign workers themselves. So first, let's focus on the wants and needs of companies hiring foreign workers.
外国人材にはできるだけ長く働いてほしいと考えているでしょう。つまり、外国人材の定着を望んでいて、離職や転職は少なくしたいと考えています。また、業務能力を向上させて生産性向上に貢献してほしい。つまり、外国人材の潜在的な能力を引き出すとともに、業務に必要な知識やスキルを習得し、成果を上げて活躍してほしいと考えているでしょう。さらに、年齢や国籍や性別や働き方など、多様なバックグラウンドを持つメンバーで構成されている職場において、同僚と良い人間関係を構築してほしいと考えているでしょ
う。So companies or employers hiring foreign workers want these workers to work for them as long as possible, which means they will want them to stay and in turn reduce the number of workers leaving them or changing jobs. In addition, they would like foreign workers to improve their work capabilities and contribute to increased productivity. In other words, they would like them to be able to draw out the potential of foreign workers so that they can acquire the knowledge and the skills necessary for the job and in turn allow them to achieve the results they want. Furthermore, in a workplace made up of members with diverse backgrounds, specifically different ages, nationalities, genders, and working styles, companies want employees to be able to build good relationships with one another.
一方、外国人材の Wants と Needs はどうでしょうか。外国人材は労働時間やお給料や労働環境など、労働条件が良い職場で働きたいと考えているでしょう。また、安心安全な職場で働きたいと考えているでしょう。外国人材の労働災害の件数は残念ながら増加しているのが現状です。次に、最も重要なポイントだと思われますが、明確なキャリアパスがある職場で働きたいと考えているでしょう。キャリアパスとは、従業員が将来の目標を達成するために必要な道筋や過程ですが、これが明確に外国人材にも提示されているかどうかが重要なポイントとなるでしょう。最後に、離職や転職にもつながる職場の人間関係についてです。 外国人材も人間関係が良い職場で働きたいと考えているでしょう。
So on the other hand, what are the wants and needs of foreign workers? Foreign workers want to work for a company that offers good working conditions, including good working hours, proper wages, and a good working environment. They also want to work in a safe and secure workplace. Unfortunately, the number of workplace accidents involving foreign workers is on the rise. So next, and perhaps most importantly, foreign workers would like to work in a workplace where they can get a clear career path. By saying career path, we are referring to the path or process that an employee needs to follow in order to achieve their future goals. And it's important that this is clearly presented to them. Finally, we also have the issue of workplace relationships, which can lead to resignations and job changes. Foreign workers would like to work in a place or a company with good interpersonal relationships.
それでは、ここでパーソル総合研究所が実施した日本で働く外国人材の就業実態、意識調査の結果を参照しながら、現場の状況を把握したいと思います。まず、外国人材側の現状です。大きく3つのことが指摘されています。まず、外国人側は常に良い条件があれば転職したいと考えており、離職するリスクが高いことが分かっています。また、職場での孤独感の高さが指摘されています。孤独感が高い場合、ジョブパフォーマンス、継続就業以降、会社満足度が低く、転職意向が高いことが分かっています。日本語レベル別に職場で感じる孤独感を見ると、正社員では N3 未満相当で強い孤独感が確認されています。さらに、外国人材は会社には言えない不満を多く抱えており、企業が認識している不満の 2.6 倍あったことが指摘されています。日本人上司のマネジメント行動に対する不満は、孤独感や転職意向を高めること、業務とキャリアの結びつきに関連する不満は、継続就業意向と他者推奨意向にともに負の影響を与えること、コミュニケーションの不満は、他者遂行意向に負の影響を与えること、つまり他の人にはお勧めできないこと、給与への不満は転職につながること。
So, first, it says here, now let's take a look at the situation on the ground by looking at the results of a survey on the working conditions and attitudes of foreign workers in Japan conducted by Persol Research Institute. Regarding the current situation for foreigners, we have 3 major points to consider. First, it's known that foreigners are always willing to change jobs if better conditions become available and that they are at high risk of quitting their jobs. The second item that has been pointed out is that there's a high level of loneliness in the workplace. So it's been found that people with a high level of loneliness have lower job performance, less intention to continue working, and lower company satisfaction, accompanied by a higher tendency to switch jobs. Looking at the level of loneliness felt in the workplace by Japanese language level, we observe a strong sense of loneliness among we observe a strong sense of loneliness among full-time employees with a Japanese language level of less than N3. Furthermore, it has been pointed out that foreign workers have many complaints that they cannot express to their companies, and that this number is actually 2.6 times higher than the concerns that companies are aware of. Dissatisfaction with the management behavior of Japanese superiors also increases feelings of loneliness and tendency to change jobs. Dissatisfaction related to the connection between work and career, meaning unclear career paths or unclear scope of work, not being able to do work that develops skills, has a negative impact on both the intention to continue working and the intention to recommend their current company to others. When it comes to dissatisfaction with communication or the lack of intercultural understanding in the workplace, We also experience unclear decision-making processes and communication difficulties. These negatively impact foreign workers' intention to recommend their current company and its products to others. The last one is the dissatisfaction with salary, which also leads to a desire for foreign workers to change jobs.
一方で、外国人部下を持つ日本人上司側の現状についても報告されています。外国人材を受け入れる職場の 30% がノウハウがなく手探り状態であること、上司自身のストレス度も高いこと、上司のストレスはパート、アルバイト、技能実習生の外国人材をマネージメントする職場で高いこと、この背景には日本語能力の影響の可能性があります。また、外国人材を受け入れる際にネガティブな想定外のショックを感じる上司が多いこと、また、受け入れショックを感じやすい上司は、外国人材に対してルールを守ることや同調圧力など規範意識が高いこと、そして受け入れショックは上司自身の離職リスクを高めること、以上のような日本人上司側の現状が報告されています。
So on the other hand, the current situation of Japanese managers who have foreign subordinates has also been reported. Their situation is as follows. First, 30% of workplaces that accept foreign employees are in a trial and error state due to a lack of know-how. Next, supervisors themselves experience a high level of stress. So it says here about 34.3% of them overall experience a high level of stress. Third, stress levels are particularly high among supervisors managing part-time workers, temporary staff, and technical intern trainees. Next, many supervisors feel negative shocks, which are unexpected negative shocks when accepting foreign employees. Number 5, supervisors who are more prone to experiencing acceptance shock tend to have a strong sense of norms and tend to emphasize rule compliance and implicit conformity. And the last, it says here, acceptance shock increases the risk of supervisors leaving their jobs.
共に働くために必要な日本語教育、日本語学習とは何か、これまでお話ししてきた通り、就労現場で期待される日本語教育、日本語学習は、外国人材だけでなく、共に働くメンバーすべてに必要なことであると言えるでしょう。外国人材にとって就労現場で期待される日本語能力は、大きく2つに分けることができるでしょう。
So, what kind of Japanese language education and learning is necessary to be able to work together? As we have discussed so far, the Japanese language education and learning expected in the workplace is necessary not only for foreign workers, but for all co-workers involved. The Japanese language ability expected of foreign workers in the workplace can broadly be divided into 2 categories.
一つは、業務遂行に必要な日本語です。業務とキャリアの結びつき、キャリアパス、業務範囲、スキルの向上と日本語能力の関係を明確に示すことが重要です。業務能力と日本語能力をバラバラではなく、それらの関係性を整理した目標設定が必要です。もう一つは、職場でのコミュニケーションや人間関係構築に必要な日本語です。外国人材の職場での孤独感の高さが先行研究でも指摘されていましたが、孤独感は労働意欲や会社満足度を低下させ、離職や転職につながることが指摘されていました。職場の同僚や上司とのコミュニケーションを円滑に行い、より良い人間関係を構築するための日本語能力を習得することにより、職場における孤独感を低減することができます。
So the first category mentioned is Japanese language necessary for job performance. It is important to clearly demonstrate the relationship between the Japanese language proficiency and career development, specifically in relation to career path, scope of work, and skill improvement. It is also necessary to set goals that reflect the relationship between work skills and Japanese language skills rather than treating them as separate. The next category mentioned is Japanese language necessary for workplace communication and relationship building. Previous research has pointed out that foreign workers feel a high level of loneliness and isolation in the workplace. and that loneliness reduces their motivation to work, as well as their satisfaction with their employer, leading to their resignation and job changes. Acquiring Japanese language skills to facilitate smooth communication with colleagues and supervisors can help build better workplace relationships and reduce foreign workers' feelings of isolation.
共に働くメンバーにとって必要な日本語能力や異文化間能力についても検討する必要があります。外国人材を受け入れる職場への組織的なサポート体制を充実させる必要があります。外国人材を受け入れる日本人上司個人や職場にお任せするのではなく、日本人の同僚や上司の外国人材受け入れ研修、指導、説明、相談窓口の設置など、組織的なサポート体制や研修を充実させることが重要です。例えば、優しい日本語研修やアンコンシャスバイアス研修、外国人部下を持つマネージャー研修などが有効ではないでしょうか。
So it's also necessary to consider the Japanese language ability and intercultural skills required by those who will be working together. It is necessary to improve organizational support systems for workplaces that accept foreign workers, rather than leaving it up to individual Japanese managers or workplaces who accept foreign workers. It's important to improve organizational support systems and training for Japanese colleagues and managers, such as offering courses such as training to accept foreign workers, guidance, explanations, and establishment of consultation desks. For example, we have here Easy Japanese training, unconscious bias training, and training for managers who have foreign subordinates, which may also be effective or helpful.
ここまで何のために日本語学習、日本語教育が必要なのか、共に働くために必要な日本語学習、日本語教育とは何かについて考えてまいりました。最後に、就労分野における日本語教育の今後の課題について整理しておきたいと思います。
So far, we have considered the following questions. Why is Japanese language learning and education necessary? What kind of Japanese language and learning, what kind of Japanese language learning and education is necessary for working together? In closing, I would like to summarize the future challenges for Japanese language education in the employment sector.
就労分野の日本語教育の特徴として、さまざまな観点からの多様性や個別性に配慮しなければならないということがあります。また、その多様性や個別性を考慮した目標設定や評価方法を検討する必要があります。多様性、個別性について考慮した目標設定と評価方法の検討が今後の課題であると考えます。
So a characteristic of Japanese language education for work is that it is necessary to take into consideration diversity and individuality from various perspectives. It is necessary to consider goal setting and evaluation methods that take diversity and individuality into account. The ability to engage in this type of goal setting is something we can consider the next step or a future challenge for us to accomplish.
具体的には以下の5つのポイントをお示ししました。就労段階の多様性、休職活動中、就労準備中、在職中について考慮すること、キャリアパスの多様性について考慮すること、業種や職種によって求められる言語活動の多様性、個別性を考慮すること、客観指標、例えば JLPT などの既存の試験で測定できる日本語能力と測定できない能力について整理すること、既存試験による評価に限界があることを踏まえ、試験に限らない能力評価方法の活用を検討すること。
So specifically, we presented the following 5 points. First is to consider the diversity of employment stages, such as job seeking, preparation for employment, and being employed. Next is to take into account the diversity of career paths. Following that, we have to consider the diversity and individuality of required language activities based on industry and job type. Clarify the Japanese language abilities that can and cannot be measured using objective indicators such as existing tests like the JLPT, and then recognize the limitations of evaluations based solely on existing tests And we also have to explore the alternative assessment methods beyond these examinations.
次の森島さんのお話の中では、これらの課題をどのように解決したのか、その具体例をお示しくださるのではないかと考えます。
So I believe in the following presentation, Mr. Morishima will give us some more concrete examples of how he solved issues like this in his workplace.
参考文献リストです。
Right. So these are the references used in today's lecture. So this brings us to the end of Shimada Sensei's lecture. Shimada Sensei, arigato gozaimashita. We are grateful for your insightful analysis of the challenges before us and for the valuable suggestions you have provided. We would also like to thank Professor Shimada for giving us the privilege to be a part of the first bilingual presentation on the framework of reference for Japanese language education. So next, we'll be hearing from Mr. Satoshi Morishima of DENSO Corporation. He will be presenting on creating new practical targets for Japanese language education. Mr. Morishima is a leading practitioner in corporate Japanese language education. Right. Morishima-san, yoroshiku onegai itashimasu.
Good morning, everyone. I speak in English, right? I'm Satoshi Morishima from DENSO Corporation. It's an honor for me to be here today. I would like to thank the Japan Foundation Manila for this wonderful opportunity. Professor Shimada explained public framework and trend. My presentation is about one of practical solutions. My goal today is to connect to people who share the same thoughts about creating new and practical targets for Japanese language education. So I hope that you can find some tips from my presentation to improve current situations. So today's agenda revolves around three key questions. Why, what, and how. The order is intentional as it reflects the core message I want to share with you today. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Why did we think of creating a new target? First of all, I thought it's better to explain the background of this activity, namely, what is the position of Japanese language training for DENSO. Okay? DENSO is mainly involved in the automobile parts industry, and it has many group companies in the world. Among them, the number of Asian group companies is the largest, and there are many associates using Japanese language for their work. They contribute to business with Japanese manufacturers and have a strong commitment to work at Japanese companies. This is the background of today's story. Next, I'd like to touch on my career at DENSO. How did I encounter Japanese language education? When I joined DENSO, I was assigned to the accounting department. At that time, I had nothing to do with human resources development. Later, I gained a lot of experience as an accounting person in Indonesia, Malaysia, Brazil, and the United States. In 2015, I was transferred to the engineering human resources development department for the first time. At first, I did not know what to do because of this unexpected rotation. But finally, I found a hint. Okay, what if I were to provide Japanese language training to engineers? that might be possible for me. Okay. This idea came from a request by an engineering department person. And this encounter changed my career greatly. So, as soon as I accepted this mission, I faced conflict between us and language schools. Okay? The left side, issues at the workplace, and right side, responses from language schools. At that moment, conversation between the two parties was something like this. Number one, engineers dispatched from overseas group companies rapidly increased due to business needs, but some of them were severely lacking in conversational skills. What happened? Number two, no training curriculum specifically for them. Textbook content is very different from real workplace conversations. That might be a reason why it's difficult for us to motivate them. Number three, they had all taken the JLPT N3 or above in their home countries. But number four, should they aim for N2? We have no specific goal other than the JLPT. Number five, we understand that conversational ability is not directly related to the JLPT level. So passing the JLPT is no longer a solution to this issue. Number six, what should we do then? Can you give us more specific instructions? Number seven, we gave up on answering them and left them out of the conversation. Okay, this shows that the lack of communication between the two indirectly prevents us from achieving our goals. So we asked ourselves, what should the language goals be for learners of Japanese? Okay. Our answer was for workers to acquire smooth communication skills in the workplace and leading to career advancement for themselves. Okay. Language training is simply a means to that end. This seems very obvious, but we often lose sight of it. After setting these new goals, we took action. First, we agreed with workplaces that we would not just aim to pass the JLPT, but focus on more practical skills. Okay, we adopt a shaved ice approach like this, building skills layer by layer. Namely, we focused on specific goals, creating classes and textbooks on our own to ensure they were directly connected to workplace needs. This was a significant departure from our previous method. Anyway, we wanted to avoid saying, okay, memorize this because you might be able to use it someday. Okay. This pilot project we conducted at a Vietnamese site was highly successful. However, being asked when learners would graduate, we could not answer. This highlighted essential issues like the fact that we lacked a specific target level. Okay, we tried to think again about the relationship among target can-dos, training program development, and class operations. As you might know, the desirable way of working is why and what come first, then how. But so far, it seems that how and what always come first. Why not to start with why? From here, I like to explain using a metaphor like this. This is ocean of Japanese language training. Okay, this is man-made island on the sea. On the island, there is a building, and tugboat is pulling these structures. If we start with how, it means we will be leading the class without a precise direction. If we start with what, it means we might build programs with a weak underlying purpose, making them useless in the end. It's just like buildings on the sand. But if we start with why, we can build relevant programs in accordance with their true purpose. Then we can lead the class along precise directions. Okay, let's take a moment here. Even if you always used to can do, was it as a purpose or simply an evaluation use after setting classes or programs? If latter, you cannot say you started with why. So we came to think that we might have chosen the wrong start in the past. For that reason, we decided our first mission is to create a new target standard based on true purpose. By doing so, we can tell more exactly when learners can graduate from the course. Chapter 2. What is a new target standard? We created a CEFR-based target standard in 2019. As you probably know, CEFR is the most famous framework for the assessment of verbal communication in the world. In 2021, the Japanese Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology adopted the CEFR as a reference framework for Japanese language education. This decision was very crucial. Okay, as for us, since 2018, we already have believed in the usefulness and branding of the CEFR all the way. So we were not mistaken in that direction. The CEFR-based way of instruction is no longer a legally recognized standard. Then, how did we want to adapt the CEFR? Evaluation by the CEFR are useful as a formative assessment to confirm the outcome in the learning course. However, if assessment results stay only in the classroom, it's difficult to motivate learners because if it is not yet recognized as a formal qualification by society outside the classroom, learners tend to say, if so, I am still going for the JLPT. This appeal of large-scale diagnostic assessment is still very strong. To address this situation, we thought the new standard should have two roles. One is formative, another is diagnostic. As a strategy to attract the interest of learners, we came up with the idea of giving a more diagnostic assessment role to the CEFR. Doing so, learners can use a specific label to describe their proficiency. Okay. What methodology was used for creating the target standard? Original CEFR was not suitable for diagnostic use because boundaries are difficult to distinguish and descriptions are sometimes too abstract. Therefore, we made necessary adjustments to make standard more applicable to the workplace. To do so, we did field work to learn about learners' pattern of use. Then we clarified the boundaries. Even after creating this once, we went back and forth between fieldwork and definition making again and again. Finally, we received supervision from some university professors. The key points we valued were whether we can really assess learners' capability to communicate in the workplace. Okay. Next, I'd like to show you what the capability image looks like. Firstly, we generate comprehensive can-do statement. When you see a lot of can-do statement by capability level, how do you identify the level quickly? I suspect it will come to be complicated operations. For that reason, comprehensive definition is very significant. Then, at the same time, we reinforced more detailed definition to clarify the boundaries. Comprehensive image of each level are this way. If you are evaluated as B2, you can speak in a way that your main points are easily understood. You can also adjust your pace to match the person you are talking to and converse without causing them stress. Suppose you are B1 people. If proficient speakers try to match your level, you can say what you want to say. However, you are self-paced and are unable to adjust to others. Suppose you are A2. If proficient speakers often respond and ask questions, the conversation manages to continue, but both you and other person may get stressed because you cannot fully say what you want. How do you feel? These definitions place emphasis on interaction with others rather than what you can do by yourself. That's the point. Because these are communication capability standards. And in our daily life, we naturally perform communicative activities. So I believe we can understand the standards from a layman's point of view. In other words, we don't have to be an expert to understand this. From tacit knowledge among experts to formal knowledge owned by everyone. This is one of our slogans. What part of CEFR did we decide to focus on? Please recall again. For what are we creating a new standard? It's for practical diagnostic assessment. For that purpose, it must be simple enough for anyone to handle. So we focused test on only speaking capability with interaction. Out of 5 kinds of communicative activities, because that's the most efficient way. Okay, I'd like to explain in more detail. CEFR tells us language learners' capability can be classified into 5 kinds like this. Please assume the case of adult acquired learners at level B and above. Speaking persons can read and write, and also they can listen. If so, speaking test can almost cover all of the 5 capabilities mentioned. And another thing, We have not prepared the definitions of level 3 because we suppose that persons of level 3 wouldn't demand diagnostic assessment. Okay? Anyway, I'd like to mention again, everything is for practical assessment process. For that reason, we need to simplify the assessment process to make it feasible. Then, what definitions are necessary to evaluate capability? We selected six categories from CEFR to describe speaking capability with interactions. Okay? Okay. Look, vocabulary range, grammatical accuracy, pronunciation, fluency, logical consistency, and oral communicative skills. I'm sorry, I don't have enough time today to explain all the definitions, but I also think that explanations do not make sense if you don't have any chance to evaluate someone in real life. Actually, we have more detailed definitions for enhancing accuracy. It's a useful means to clarify the boundaries for diagnostic evaluation. Chapter 3, how do we utilize and spread it? Okay, let's take a moment here to review what we've seen so far. Do you remember? Chapter 1, why did we think of creating a new target? Chapter 2, what is the new target standard? Here in Chapter 3, okay, as I mentioned earlier, the desirable way of working is why and what come first, then how. So let's move on to the how phase. This is the final phase of today's presentation. What learners should we support using the target standard? This distribution image is just a hypothesis assumed from learner's tendency. But I expect this image is convincing for you too. Vertical rows are JLPT qualified persons, and horizontal columns, conversational ability in CEFR-based. So this chart shows how much is conversational ability which a JLPT qualified person has. Then blue dashed line shows general assumption written in Wikipedia. It may be an expectation that qualified person should have this level of conversational ability. However, as the pink line indicates, their actual abilities usually do not match the expectations. The higher the JLPT score, the larger the gap is. Which layer should be a target is also very important for every countermeasure. So the aim of the support is to raise conversational ability. Then, how did we spread target standard? This is our actual case study. In 2019, we formally adopted it as a requirement for associates to be dispatched from overseas to the headquarters. Okay. Prior to that, the only requirement for selection was N3 or higher. However, under the new rules, when we became acceptable, associates were also expected to meet the CEFR-based requirement of B1.1 or higher. Why B1.1? Because we assume this target is suitable for bridge engineers, okay, inside DENSO group. But if customer-facing, B2.1 is mandatory, we think. Of course, the guideline is applied only to associates who speak Japanese at work. The rule change aimed to motivate learners of the purple lines, okay, purple lines, and raise them up to B1.1. As a result, our associate mindset has been fully changed. Once must-achieve targets were established, every associate naturally comes to recognize what is the priority. So, the most necessary thing is a proper target, not educational environment. How should we treat the target standard through the class? From here, let's go to the practical process. I'd like to explain the relationship between evaluation process and education planning. Firstly, evaluation based on the standards should be implemented by other persons than teachers concerned. After the 20 minutes interview test, plural testers will evaluate the interview results. Then, the teacher in charge will determine categories to be improved like this. In this example, communication skill, oral communication, communicative skills, and fluency are selected. The train contents are planned based on this. Okay. From my point of view, promises to improve all capabilities at the same time are often false. Only when specific points are targeted are we able to say that we have a sincere educational plan. After a certain period of time, we re-evaluate with the target standard. Once targeted category is achieved, we will shift to improving another capabilities category. Like this, we aim to approach B1.1 step by step. Through this process, whether our commitment has been met or not is clarified more, because it's a commitment to quality of result. It's not quantitative result, such as, okay, I made it to the end of the textbook, or I did 20 hours of class. This might be a hard commitment for a less motivated teacher. On the other hand, for a good teacher, I believe there is no commitment more rewarding than this. How should we change what we teach? Some teacher may be at a loss how to teach. So I'd like to offer a few tips. Firstly, we should be always learner first. It means a policy change, namely from textbook-oriented to learner's interest-oriented. So communication exercise should be based on the learner's professional or personal interests. In this chart, the portion with star mark, this portion, star mark should be the scope of class. And we should not touch portion A and B. About portion A, please note that some learners cannot identify which contents are useful for themselves. Therefore, I think teachers should imagine it instead of them. Such a kind of imagination is often necessary. On the other hand, portion B is better for us to rely on OJT, on-the-job training, because we may teach false words or sentences due to lack of practical knowledge. Secondly, the focus in the class must be shifted to the contents addressed by the new target standard. I recommend that more focus be placed on pronunciation, oral communicative skill, and logical speaking. These are very crucial capabilities for business communication, but JLPT does not cover and evaluate them. Therefore, if their capabilities are improved in accordance with the new standard, it will possibly lead them to good performance at work. To sum up, learning points are not only for assessment, but also for career advancement. Next, how we managed to move the minds of people concerned. I think the following three parties are involved in Japanese language education. Then I would like to guess how each of them thinks about the new target standards. Okay. As for learners, they can envision how language skills will lead to their own career advancement. So they will aim to acquire conversational skills while in their home country. As for workplaces, they are already aware that the JLPT is not enough. So they would recognize that a new target is also necessary for them. Okay? As for teachers, okay, they are hungry for new targets. They will have more opportunities to consolidate their own expertise and creativity into a new teaching target and style. Okay? If we believe the final purpose is to realize a fulfilling life as a member of society, targets have to be milestones for getting closer to this purpose. It's important for people concerned to share one connected image of evaluation, target, and purpose, like this. Next, what are critical points to spread the target standard? Speaking of conditions for spreading CEFR-based standards, the following can be mentioned: validity, reliability, and feasibility. Okay? The ministry has told us that without meeting these conditions, widespread use will be difficult. Anyway, many methodology will probably exist. For example, as option A, if we make the most conservative decisions, widespread testing would take a long time due to lack of feasibilities. On the other hand, as option B, if we make a more practical decision, other conditions must be compromised depending on feasibility. So my decision was to take option B because feasibility regulates everything. Then the most critical point for feasibility is to develop human resources to become testers. Without sufficient testers, both quantitatively and qualitatively, the evaluation system will never work. Tester development is key to spread the CEFR-based standards. Oh, how can we accelerate this change? Let me share where I plan to go from here. The first step is to identify key triggers for the wide adoption of this program. In case educational institution would simply wait for requests from the workplace, what would happen? I'm afraid it would take so much time. Moreover, language training systems at workplace are not always solid and sustainable. So I think we should not rely too much on workplace. Educational institutions are rather necessary to be encouraged to proactively make suggestions and drive innovation. Next challenge is to establish robust tester development systems. I believe that it should be established through industry, government, academia collaboration. Our idea is that teachers' mission originally include both instructor and tester duties. So teachers should become testers to ensure that lessons are connected to target standards, and gaining experience in evaluation will make them good testers and good instructors. In closing, I would like to remind everyone, desirable environment is not what's given to us, but what we make. Okay? If you are interested in what I shared today, please feel free to contact me and or Fujimi Sensei from the Japan Foundation, Manila. Okay? Please keep in mind, this presentation is not a goal, but a start. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.
はい、MORISHIMA-san、どうもありがとうございました。Thank you, Mr. Morishima, for your insightful presentation and for sharing your pioneering work in this field. We would like to turn to presentation by Mr. Alexander Makainag, a highly experienced Japanese language education in the Philippines, who will be sharing his response to this morning's lectures. はい、Alex Sensei、お願いいたします。
はい。チェスカさん、ありがとうございます。はい。皆さん、おはようございます。よろしくお願いします。please allow me to share my slides. はい。please allow me to start. So the title of my reaction is Problem Awareness by Industry, Government, Academia, Citizen in the Philippines. はい。So the flow of my presentation is first, a background of myself. A second are summaries of the presentation of Shimada Sensei and Morishima-san, and then finally my reactions. Tsugi onegaishimasu. So I am Alex. I am an advisor for the Association of Nihongo Teachers in the Visayas, or ANTV. Hi, a little background about me. I learned Nihongo in Japan from 1995, and I worked in Japan for 2 years. And I worked also in Japanese companies here in the Philippines. And currently I'm teaching Nihongo in Japanese companies in Cebu. As proof, I have a picture of me in Japan in 1995. Please find me in the picture. Okay, so a short summary of Shimada Sensei's presentation. So according to Shimada Sensei, there is a divide existing between employers and foreign workers. This is caused by gaps in communication and culture. In the current Japan foreign labor system, their Nihongo education only has what to do and how to do it, not the why or not the reasons for their Nihongo education. So according to Shimada Sensei, the why, the reason for Nihongo education should align with what both the wants and needs of the employers and the foreign workers. If the why is not clear, existing tests like JLPT become the goal of Japanese language education. Because of this, the Framework of Reference for Japanese Language Education, or Nihongo Kyoiku no Sansho Waku, was created. This is a learning, teaching, and assessment tool focusing on what you can do with Nihongo, with the goal of intercultural understanding and respect, based on the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, or CEFR. According to Shimada Sensei, support should not be only given to the foreign workers, but also to the employers and Japanese co-workers. Also, there is a need to create industry-appropriate Nihongo education. To achieve this, industry, government, and academia collaboration, or Sankan Gakurenkei, is needed. Tsugi, onegai shimasu. So next, I would like to provide a short summary of Morishima-san's presentation. So Morishima-san created a DENSO-specific Nihongo education standard, also based on CEFR. So this is a sample case of industry-specific Nihongo education implementation, which was deemed necessary in Shimada Sensei's presentation. Tsugi, onegai shimasu. Hi. So the characteristics of DENSO's Nihongo approach are, number one, clear goals, clear standards, and clear points of assessment. So I am personally, as a Nihongo instructor, I am grateful for this excellent reference on how to make practical, context-specific goal setting, standards creation, and assessments. I encourage my fellow teachers to check out Morishima-san's and DENSO's Nihongo education approach. Tsugi, onegai shimasu. So because of their unique Nihongo education approach tailored to their company, learners, workplaces, and teachers were able to work together. As a pleasant surprise, this is the same conclusion as the TLC approach in education, which is an initiative launched by ANTV last 2014 to investigate the problems of Nihongo education in the Philippines. This was also presented last year in the JFM Advocacy Seminar. In case you were not able to attend last year, I have added a link for your reference if you are interested. Tsugi, onegai shimasu. So going to my reactions on Shimada Sensei and Morishima-san's presentations, for me, I think the main theme for today is problem awareness, or mondai ishiki desu. So because of problem awareness by the Japanese government, they created Irodori and the Framework of Reference for Japanese Language Education. Because of the problem awareness of DENSO and Morishima-san, they created a new standard for Japanese language education. Tsugi, onegai shimasu. So how about the Philippines? In our country, a vast majority still uses JLPT certification as target. So what happens when companies over-rely and inappropriately rely on JLPT? There will be pressure on schools to produce JLPT passers. And if the schools, students do not pass the JLPT, teachers are assessed negatively. Does this type of problem awareness exist in industry, government, academia, and civil society, or the public, or Sankan Gakumin here in the Philippines? Minasan, do desu ka? Tsugi, onegai shimasu. Hi. So in Japan, one example of industry, government, academia, and citizen collaboration was held August last year in the Industry, Government, Academia, and Citizen Co-Creation Forum. In the main session, the Fukuoka Regional Strategy Promotion Council, or FDC, and Future Design Shibuya, two of the most successful organizations that implement this approach in Japan explored the nature of collaboration between these four sectors to solve society's problems. How about here in the Philippines? A successful example of industry, government, academia, and citizen collaboration. Shown here is a picture of the second Philippine Kobanashi Festival, which we were able to accomplish as a collaboration between teachers from Philippines and Japan, the academe, our Rakugo master from Japan, which is the industry, Japan Foundation Manila, government, and ATV, the public sector or the citizens. So ANTV identified an issue that we can improve, which is the involvement of teachers and students in the yearly JFM Nihongo Fiesta. We did the preparation, planning, and proposal to all four sectors, which led to the successful implementation of this project. We hope that this example can encourage all of the Nihongo teachers and even Nihongo learners here in the Philippines to take the initiative and do what we can to improve the state of Nihongo education here in our country. Tsugi, onegai shimasu. So going back to my question, do we have problem awareness here in the Philippines? So looking at the breakdown of participants in today's webinar, we have 300 plus registrants from industry, government, academia, and the public. So this shows that there is mondai ishiki, there is problem awareness. However, it seems that there is no urgency yet to act. So how can we create a sense of urgency to improve our Nihongo education here in the Philippines? So first, we need to involve industry, government, academia, and citizen decision makers, the ishikette sha, not just here in our country, but also in Japan. So the decision makers need to have a precise awareness of the current situation of Nihongo education here in the Philippines. After conducting an investigation, we will eventually reach the conclusion and discover what Shimada sensei and Morishima-san shared today, which are, number one, a need for context-specific Nihongo education, and number two, a need for teacher and assessor development. But how can academia propose an industry-specific Nihongo education approach if the academe does not know the industry? So this is where the DENSO-specific Nihongo education approach comes in, with its specific goal setting, standards creation, and assessment to serve as an excellent case study that we can use. Also, industry-academia collaboration is vital from the planning stage. Once that Nihongo education approach is created, next, we need to develop skilled teachers and assessors to kickstart the tester development system proposed by Morishima-san and the viable teacher development program. Industry, government, academia, and citizen collaboration, Sankan Gakumin Renkei, is absolutely indispensable. And finally, so therefore, the meaning of collaboration for Nihongo education in the Philippines are the following. Number one, decision makers must have full grasp of the current situation of Nihongo education here in the Philippines and kickstart the entire process, especially in our country. If the decision makers give the go sign, everything starts quickly. Everything flows smoothly. Number 2, industry, academia, and the public, the civil society, must collaborate for why, what, and how of our Nihongo education. And finally, industry, government, academia, and citizen collaboration will create teacher and tester development programs to appropriately support our Nihongo learners. Before I end, I would like to pose one final question. Have we created problem awareness, Mondai Ishiki, in the decision makers here today to spark industry, government, academia, and citizen collaboration? I sincerely hope that this event was able to create problem awareness and serve as a catalyst for industry, government, academia, and citizen collaboration for the improvement of Japanese language education in our country. So this ends my presentation. ご清聴ありがとうございました。
はい、ありがとうございました、Alex Sensei. So thank you very much, Alex Sensei, for sharing the Philippine perspective on Japanese language education for work, for raising our problem awareness, and stressing the need for collaborative action between different sectors of society. Your final question leaves us with something very important to think about. So we will now begin our reaction and sharing portion. We will start with comments from Professor Shimada and Mr. Morishima on Alex Sensei's presentation. I will provide interpretation. So for everyone's information, Professor Shimada has been involved in various projects related to the industry, government, and academia. So we'd like to listen to her response to Alex Sensei's presentation. Shimada Sensei, 私たちの問題意識を社会の変化に結びつけるために、どのような活動が必要だとお考えでしょうか。
アレックス先生、ありがとうございました。そうですね、日本でも、まだまだ、なんて言うんでしょう、まだまだ、問題があると思っています。ですので、フィリピンだけの問題ではなくて、就労分野の日本語教育において、最も大きな課題が、アレックス先生がおっしゃってくださった産学、産業、行政、アカデミア、教育の連携だと思っています。ですので、どのようにやっていくかっていうのは、どこでも大きな問題かなと思うんですけど、どうやってっていうのはなかなか難しい質問ですね。一つずつ、森島さんのようなDENSOのような会社ですとか、一つモデルを作って展開していくですとか、そういったことも日本では行っています。ちょっと苦しい答えですみません。森島さんどうでしょう。すいません。
はい。Okay, speak in English. Okay. Sorry, I'm wondering things might move forward if public organizations such as Japan Foundation, something like that, provide some support when initiating activity. It could be simply some guidance, not a specific help, just guidance. In Japanese, 皆さんこれをしましょう。これをやりましょう。Someone should provide such a kind of direction. Okay. I think so. That's all.
Hi, thank you very much, Shimada Sensei, Morishima-san. So earlier, Shimada Sensei said that actually the question we posed was very difficult, and like it's very hard to answer because creating connections between industry, government, and academia are still quite difficult to achieve even in Japan. Like Morishima-san said, it might be good to like have a model first, to make a model and share it with others. And it would be good, I guess, if like the organizations like Japan Foundation would actually provide support to inform the public about this kind of issues and concerns. So thank you very much for your comments. Shimada Sensei, Morishima-san, komento arigatou gozaimashita. I have a question also for Morishima-san. So, Morishima-san は、社内でどのような理解者やサポーターを増やしていたのでしょうか？
Okay, I'd like to say, every action starts from sharing issues. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, so every action starts from sharing issues. Without them, nothing starts. So if a learner is lacking in conversational ability, and it comes to a problem, it can be a significant issue. Okay? And discussion would start. Actually, almost all of the people around me could easily understood, this is the issue. So I'm very sorry. I can't imagine what prevented you from addressing this problem. Everyone is convinced already. So necessary thing is just action from small success, something like that.
Thank
That's
you very much, Morishima-san. So I guess like what you did, it's important to take small steps and really show other stakeholders that there's actually something going on, that there's something you can do. Well, let's move on to the Q&A session. So due to time constraints, we'll be asking pre-selected questions from attendees who shared their questions earlier. The first one is, how can we fill the gap between textbook Japanese and Japanese that is needed in the workplace? So, 日本語にすると、教科書で学ぶ日本語と職場で必要とされる日本語のギャップをどのように埋めることができるのでしょうか? So maybe we can ask Shimada Sensei. Shimada Sensei, お願いします。
Thank you. In English, I will answer.
Hi.
I think the norm may be going to change. For example, in the beginner's Japanese, we teach コーヒーを飲みたいですか is not correct. But when in the office, the co-worker in the same room, the コーヒー飲みたいですか is important communication to build a good relationship. So, コーヒーいかがですか is the correct sentence, but コーヒー飲みたいですか is also a good communication phrase in the workplace. So maybe I think the norm are going to change. That's the one point. So, ジェスカさん。
はい。そうですね。Actually, like what you were saying earlier, Sensei, it's like sometimes we're very strict. Like if you talk about textbook Japanese, people are very strict about grammar and like accuracy.
Yes,
but what's actually more important is, I think, communication. Because like you mentioned earlier in your presentation, like there are a lot of people who are suffering from loneliness and isolation. And like sometimes they don't know how to deal with their coworkers. But actually, I think maybe taking a step to just try and communicate, like even if it's wrong, just as long as the message gets across, I think that as you keep trying, you'll also improve. Your Japanese level will also
Yes.
improve.
Yes, so that's right. And second point is a good place to work is a good place to work for everyone, not only foreign workers, but also Japanese. So that's a second point, I think.
So like you were saying like it should be a good place for everybody to work. So I guess in a way it also means that it's not just the foreign workers who adjust. Like I guess the time has come where even maybe Japanese employers or co-workers must also learn how to adjust. So instead of looking for accuracy, it's more like what they can do with the language. So thank you very much. I would like to ask the panelists if they would like to say anything in closing. 多分もう時間になりましたので、多分一言コメントとか意見のお願いできますでしょうか。So maybe we can start with Morishima-san. Do you have any yes, any words or comments?
Okay, as well as Shimada-san, how can we bridge the gap between textbook and real workplace communication? My advice is, what if you stopped starting the class with textbook once? Then how about asking them to produce some writing and present it? The theme could be something related to the learner's interest or job. Conversation has to be based on their interest. As I told earlier, actually, I'm doing that way without any textbook at my class. So we can do it. So it's difficult. I recommend to introduce it partially within the class. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Morishima-san. I think this is the why that you were talking about earlier in your presentation. So rather than think of how or the methodology or what the content, maybe what textbook you're going to use, even if you don't have a textbook, if you know your why, clearly you can actually create a course that answers the requirements for work. So in closing, I'd like to call on Mr. Yojiro Tanaka, the Deputy Director of the Japan Foundation Manila, to deliver the closing remarks for today's seminar. Tanaka-san, yoroshiku onegai itashimasu.
Okay. Thank you very much, Shimada-san, Morishima-san, and Alex-san, even overcoming the technical problems. Today, we had more than 300 registrations. And as far as I see it, the highest number of the attendees is reached 173. And so we are very happy to see that such a good reaction and your attention to this seminar. Thank you very much. And as the Shimada Sensei's presentation, we learned that this topic is about 2.3 million foreign workers, and among those 240,000 are Filipinos, which accounts for the 11% of the total of foreign workers working in Japan. And in a broader context, this topic is about the future of Japan to work together with the foreign workers. And so we are very glad that such a very active discussion and also so many important questions to be asked and discussed. In my closing remarks, maybe I want to also challenge to answer the question from Alex-san, that the final question, have we created the problem awareness among industry, government, and academia? And the answer to that question is, well, I should say this is not like a 0% or 100% kind of question. And I want to say, yes, we have created problem awareness among industry, government, and academia to a certain extent. I can say this because the first advocacy seminar which we have conducted last year, I still remember among all the teams, the first discussion is how can we find especially among the industry, the business sectors, who can join this conversation with us. The Japan Foundation is promoting Japanese language education overseas. So among us, there are so many Japanese language teachers already. We are always connected with the government sectors in terms of the Japanese language education in the Philippines. So our question was at the time, how can we be connected with the industry? And this time, in the second advocacy seminar, we already have the speaker from the industry sector who has been conducting the Japanese language education within the industry. And that's how I feel that we are being connected. And that's why I want to say that, yes, we have been creating problem awareness among these three. And also, I just wanted to say that, and I want to steal Morishima-san's line, that this is not the goal, but the start. So we continue this advocacy seminar to create more problem awareness among the three parties. Thank you very much for your time today, and that's all.
Thank you very much, Tanaka-san. That brings us to the end of our event. Thank you once again, everybody. We sincerely hope that you were able to gain something from joining us today. And I know it's a little early, but I'd like to invite you to next year's advocacy seminar again. So, minasan, thanks for coming. Maraming salamat at arigatou gozaimashita.